What kind of language do you think native speakers would use to answer questions about free time, the internet, an interesting article they've read in a newspaper or a magazine, and the topic of newspapers, books, and magazines? You might be surprised to know that they wouldn't need lots of difficult phrasal verbs and idiomatic expressions. So if you'd like to see what kind of language I would use to get a Band 9 model answer in the IELTS speaking test, come and join me. Hello there, it's David from IELTS Teacher 365 and welcome to another IELTS mock speaking test. In today's class, I will be playing the role of a student from South Korea, Chong Kim. I would be amazed if I said that right, so my apologies to any Korean students listening to this. In this video, I will be presenting an IELTS mock speaking test and giving you some great Band 9 model answers on the topics of free time, the internet, an interesting article that you've read in a newspaper or a magazine, and the general topic of newspapers, magazines, and books. You'll see in today's video that I don't use lots of difficult phrasal verbs or idiomatic expressions to give what I consider to be Band 9 model answers to every question. Remember, to get the most out of this video, pay close attention to the language I use and my native speaker pronunciation. So, if you're ready, let's get started.
Can you tell me your full name, please?
My name's Chong Kim and I'm from Seoul in South Korea, but currently I'm living here in Australia.
Can I see your identification, please?
Yes, here you are.
Thank you, that's fine. Now, in this first part, I'd like to ask you some questions about yourself. Let's talk about what you do. Do you work or are you a student?
I'm a student. I'm in my final year of a business studies degree at a university here in Sydney, but I also work part-time as a waiter in a restaurant.
And why did you choose to study this degree?
Well, in the future, I'd like to set up my own company. So I think it's extremely important to have an in-depth knowledge of business in general. And that's basically why I chose to study this degree. And I have to say that I'm really enjoying it and I'm learning so many useful things.
What kind of work do you see yourself doing in the future?
When I finish university, what I would most like to do is get a job in a big international company. I think this is the best way for me to put all the skills and knowledge that I've acquired during my degree into practice. But as I said before, my long-term goal is to start my own company, probably an online business. But I think any experience I can gain working for someone else will be invaluable to me.
Let's talk about free time. When do you usually have free time?
Well, during the week, I have classes every morning and every afternoon from Monday to Friday. So in theory, I have evenings free. But the reality is that I have a lot of subjects to revise for and projects to do, so I probably only have about an hour or 2 hours a day. And at weekends, I still have to dedicate time to my university studies, but it's generally easier for me to go out with friends or do other activities, for example, playing sport. But in my case, when I have the most free time is in summer. Provided I've passed all my exams, I usually have a couple of months free where I can do anything I want to.
What do you usually do with your leisure time?
Well, during the week, what I like to do if I have time is some kind of exercise. For me, it's a great way to relax at the end of a busy day. I find doing exercise also improves my concentration and my energy levels, which then helps me with my studies. At weekends, however, what I most like doing is meeting up with friends. Sometimes we go out for lunch and on other occasions dinner, and then maybe to a club or a bar afterwards. And on Sundays, what I prefer doing is just to chill out at home, maybe watching a film, a TV series, or reading a good book.
In your leisure time, what do you usually do with your family?
As I study away from home, I don't get to see my family very often, only during the holidays. And what we normally do in summer, for example, is to visit a foreign country. And we will stay in different cities and go sightseeing. And I really enjoy this because it's a great way of spending quality time with my parents. And I also have very happy memories of all the different places that we've been to.
Now let's talk about the internet. Do you use the internet for fun or for education?
I use it for both things. As a university student, the internet is an important resource for me because I have a lot of projects and assignments to do, and so I need to research certain topics and find information. However, I'd have to say I use it much more for entertainment purposes. For example, listening to music online, streaming TV series, checking my social media pages, and in the past, I used to spend many hours playing video games online.
Have you ever bought anything online?
Yes, I buy quite a lot online actually. I think the websites nowadays are very easy to use and also it's very safe, so I don't mind giving them my credit card details. And I buy a lot of books online, both for university and also just to read novels. And the other thing I buy a lot is tickets, flights, concerts, the theatre, the cinema. And for me, it's very convenient because I don't have to leave my home and stand in a queue. And recently, I've been doing a lot more online shopping for clothes, and I quite like it.
Do you think our lives have been improved by the internet?
Most definitely. For me, the biggest benefit of the internet is the time we save. I mean, nowadays, we can do almost everything from the comfort of our own home just at the click of a button. And we can use this time to do more fun things with family and friends. Another big advantage for me is how the internet has changed the way we communicate. Nowadays, we can stay in contact with our family and friends through email, social media, and video conferencing. And I find this really useful.
Thank you. Now I'm going to give you a topic and I'd like you to talk about it for 1 to 2 minutes. Before you talk, you'll have 1 minute to think about what you're going to say, and you can make some notes if you wish. Do you understand?
Yes.
So here's some paper and a pen to make some notes, and here's your topic. Please don't write anything on the booklet. I'd like you to describe an article you recently read in a newspaper or magazine.
Describe an article you recently read in a newspaper or magazine. You should say when you read it, what the article was about, what type of newspaper or magazine it was in, and explain why you remember this article.
All right?
Yes.
Remember, you have 1 to 2 minutes for this, so don't worry if I stop you. I'll tell you when the time is up. Can you start speaking now, please?
Well, a few weeks ago, my English teacher gave the class an article to read for homework about how girls are now doing better than boys in the classroom all around the world in almost every subject matter. This includes maths and science, which are fields that have traditionally been dominated by men. However, the biggest difference is in the area of reading, where a significant gap has appeared. As far as I can remember, the article was taken from The Economist, which is an English newspaper. However, it isn't printed daily like most newspapers, but comes out once a week, I think. In fact, it looks more like a magazine than a paper, in terms of size, but unlike a magazine, it isn't printed on expensive glossy paper. And in my opinion, I think it's aimed at intellectual people and people who work in high positions because of the kind of topics it deals with. I think one of the reasons I remember this article so well is because I was quite surprised by some of the facts in it. For example, it mentioned that by age 15, the difference between many girls' reading ability and boys of the same age is equivalent to having studied an extra year at school. And as a result of these findings, many countries are now developing special reading programs specifically aimed at encouraging boys to read more. Another interesting fact is that more and more women expect to have a career nowadays, and as a result, they take studying far more seriously than they used to. All in all, I think it was a very interesting article which highlights important changes in society, some positive and some negative.
Thank you.
Yes, I do. When I was growing up, my parents always had a newspaper at home, and so I got into the habit of reading it when I was a teenager. Also, my parents encouraged me to do this because they thought it was important for me to know what was going on in the world. And nowadays, I read the newspaper most days, usually online. I don't read the whole newspaper, but I do read the articles that interest me and also things related to business, which is what I'm studying. On the other hand, I don't really read magazines very often. Occasionally, I might look at a magazine if I'm waiting somewhere, but I don't buy any.
Thank you. Can I take the booklet and the pencil and paper back, please? Thank you. We've been talking about an article that you've read, and I'd like to discuss with you one or two more general questions related to this. What are the main differences between newspapers and magazines?
Well, papers offer more up-to-date content than magazines because they're published daily. So we get updates on existing stories or events from the last 24 hours. In contrast, magazines tend to focus on recent events rather than breaking news because they're published once or twice a month. Also, they focus on specific fields such as entertainment, technology, or cooking, whereas papers deal with news and events in all areas of society. Another important difference is their physical appearance. Newspapers are printed on inferior quality paper and contain low-resolution photographs, whereas magazines are printed on expensive glossy paper and have many high-resolution images. This obviously has an impact on the price, and as a result, magazines tend to be dearer than papers.
How can newspapers and magazines attract more readers in this internet era?
Well, nowadays we live in a digital society, and so newspapers and magazines have had to adapt to this new medium. I think every day more and more people are using mobile devices and tablets to access the news and to read about the subjects that interest them. So in order to attract more readers, it's important for these publications to have an online presence. I suppose the advantage of an online publication is that people can subscribe to them from anywhere in the world. So there's real potential for papers and magazines to increase their readership.
What do you think are the characteristics of a good journalist?
I suppose a good journalist is someone who knows how to ask the right questions in order to be able to get all the facts and details required to write an accurate news story. So they probably have to be resourceful and determined if they want to get all the information. They also have to be able to write the story in a way that engages the reader. I think other important characteristics are dedication and flexibility. News events happen all over the world at any time of the day and night, so journalists must be willing to go where the news is happening. I imagine that this means a lot of sacrifices. They probably have to work long hours to finish stories in time for the next day's newspaper.
Let's go on and think about reading in general. What benefits do people get from reading newspapers and magazines?
Well, in my opinion, the main advantage of reading a newspaper is that you can keep up to date with what's going on in the news, not only at a local and a national level, but also international news as well. And I think it's essential to know what's happening around us, because we gain knowledge about the world we live in and stay informed about important world events as they take place. It's a kind of education, I suppose. And as far as magazines are concerned, I think it's more or less the same. We can learn interesting facts about a wide range of topics or places, stay up to date in an area that interests us, or raise our awareness about important world issues. Obviously, what you learn depends very much on what kind of magazines you read. But on the whole, I think people tend to read magazines about topics or areas that interest them.
Why do you think some people prefer magazines to books?
Well, the vast majority of magazines are considerably shorter than books, both fiction and non-fiction, so you can read them in a lot less time. Also, magazines tend to consist of articles, stories and opinions, so you can choose to read what interests you most. Whereas with a book, especially a novel, you have to read the whole story to find out what happens, and you may enjoy it or not. Another reason people might prefer magazines is because of their look and feel. They consist of lots of shiny pages with images and photographs, whereas a book only consists of text. Another reason is that magazines are published more frequently. Most tend to be fortnightly or monthly, which means they contain much more up-to-date information than books, which take much longer to write and print.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. That is the end of the speaking test.
Thank you. Goodbye. So, there you go. How do you think Chung Hyun Kim did on parts 1, 2 and 3? Drop me a comment below. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, and if you haven't already, hit subscribe and the bell below so that you never miss a video and the opportunity to keep improving your English and your IELTS bound score. I'm David, thanks very much for watching, so until next time, take care and keep practicing.